What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another panel show. And you can see very happy faces on this panel this week after the great performance, which was the 4-1 demolition of Newcastle on the weekend. We've got a bit of an Irish takeover today. Long time since Adam William Cahill's been on the channel. How are you doing, my friend?
Not doing too bad, especially at the moment, mate. Doing really good, and even better to be on the show with you guys again. Thanks so much for having me on. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. I mean, look, it was hard to get through the 4 losses and the draw when we were going through them. You know, frustrating because we were playing well, just not getting over the line and maybe creating chances, putting the chances away. But I felt like that Newcastle game, it was coming. It's been coming for the last couple of weeks, to be honest, a performance and a result like that. But David, how you doing, my friend? Looking very festive today.
No, look, I said, you know, it's the season of giving, so I'll bring everyone a bit of festive joy. Hopefully it puts a smile on people's face. I see it's working with the panel, so hopefully it extends to everybody else out there. But look, Tottenham back to winning ways, it's always a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Forget getting our wishes to Santa. We should get our wishes to David.
Exactly. Iris Hotspur clause. But let's get into the first topic of the panel. We will be looking at that Newcastle game on Sunday. Adam, do you think that was our best performance of the season? Because we have had some really good performances this season. Obviously, the Burnley game springs to mind, second half of Arsenal. But for that 90-minute showing against Newcastle, do you think it was the best of the season?
Over the full 90 minutes, you could definitely make an argument for it. I struggle to, I still feel like my favourite moments that I've seen, or my favourite matches I've seen so far have included Mickey van der Ven and obviously James Maddison as well. So the fact that they weren't in the squad, I don't know if I could say, it's just watching what Maddison's able to do, tearing down the opponents in their final third, and Mickey, looking at Mickey van der Ven whenever he is chasing back, tracking back, and sweeping up behind. Those are some of the more iconic moments of the season, I think, that show really with the potential that we have, the incredible starting 11 that we have when we're firing on all cylinders. But you know, I can see what you're saying, though. You can make a case for that because it was total dominance. Let's be fair. We made Newcastle look absolutely amateur. Now, their away form has been pretty bad in general, and they are suffering with a lot of losses similar to ourselves, like in terms of the squad, a lot of injuries and whatnot. So, you know, I don't want to dismiss them too much when, you know, they're at a loss as well. But you know, we went out and we were absolutely profound. It was to see, and you know, obviously there'll be questions about this, I'm sure, as we go. But just to see Basuma and Sarr back together again, and to see the effect that has playing against, you know, what should be, you know, a team that's up there in terms of competing with us for the top 4 spot. And we just were absolutely all over them. It was tremendous to see, and yeah, you could totally make the argument that it was our best game. But I just can't. If that's our best game, still missing probably the 2 most pivotal players in the team, I can't wait to see what we do when we've gotten completely used to Ange Ball, when we've got a fully fit and firing starting 11. Like, who's going to be able to take us on? Absolutely nobody.
Absolutely nobody. You know, we went to the Etihad and nicked the draw with Emerson Royale and Ben Davis at centre-backs. Imagine if we went up there with Coutinho Romero, Mickey van der Ven. But Dave, I felt like Pape Matar gave us a lot of balance in that midfield, and he was sorely missed coming into the game, the last, you know, 4 or 5 games that he has missed. But do you feel like that was the case, and that was our best performance of the season?
100%, I think it was our best performance of the season. I think it's the first 90 minutes we've seen at Tottenham actually in quite some time, even going back under Conte, Jose Mourinho and Nuno. I think it's the first 90 minutes performance I've seen in years. But I think the reason why I put it down to is we look the most balanced I've seen us in quite some time. Son back out to his normal position, Son in his normal position. Pape Matar, I think what we've missed with Pape Matar is the work rate and the energy. How many times did he turn that ball over in the opposition third? We've missed that the last few weeks. And, you know, other teams' counters have been very, very effective on us the last few weeks, whereas with Papa Matasar back in the time, he snuffed out a lot of them. So I think in that regard, you know, he adds so much to this team, and potentially looking at it, because no one else does what he does in terms of work rate, getting around, breaking up play in the opposition third, which is ideally where we want to be breaking up the play. You could almost nearly make the argument, is he one of our most important midfielders? Is that position nailed on for him? Because he was absolutely brilliant. You look back at the turnover that he done for Brennan Johnson, where Brennan Johnson, I think, hit the post, where he went back into right back and filled in for Pedro Porro. We were missing that the last few weeks. No one really wanted to do that sort of work rate. He's a real team player, and I'm absolutely buzzing for the kid. I remember going back to the San Siro last year when he played. He was miles better than Skip, but for some reason, Conte preferred Skip. Papa Matasar's all-round game is better than his, and I'm glad that Postecoglou has given him the chance, and he's grabbed it with both hands. And with his absence, with him coming back, he's showing how important he is to this team, I feel.
Sim, do you agree?
Or about Sarr? Or about
Sarr and the best performance of the season?
I think obviously the first 10 games of the season we were really good, and in terms of the balance of the team was great. I felt like defensively we were really strong, not giving away too many chances. But I felt like offensively we still had more to maybe give, I felt, in the first 10 games. I thought we showed sprouts of being this team who could, you know, go all out, create loads of chances and really take the game to the opposition. I felt maybe we were a bit more controlled. Like, for example, you know, like games like Palace, games like Fulham at home. We played well, we controlled the game, but it wasn't like we created a bucket load of chances. We just had more control of the game, and we managed the games very, very well, and we had those moments of quality when we needed them. But I felt like Sunday was the first time this season I really felt that sense of control and that sense of excitement kind of throughout the whole team, and in terms of going forward as well.
Maybe the other game that's comparable to that is maybe Burnley away earlier in the season. We scored 5 goals. We battered them pretty much for 90 minutes. That's probably the only game that's comparable to it, right? Yeah,
I'd probably agree with that. I would say in that Burnley game, obviously we went 1-0 down, and then we completely took control of the game, and we completely battered them for the rest of the game. And they had very little answer to what we had in our team. Obviously, Newcastle is a different kettle of fish. I know they got injuries, and I know they were clearly running on empty, and that was important to take into account. You know, they're very much struggling away from home against lots of teams at the moment. So I think Adam is 100% right when he says that it's not that it was an easy game, but you got to take that into consideration when you talk about how amazing Spurs were. Newcastle, they were just on their feet. You could see they really struggled with the intensity and the energy of Spurs. That was their biggest failing, I felt. But in terms of Tottenham ourselves, I think that's the most chances we've created throughout the whole season. I really felt we stifled Newcastle massively during the game. Apart from that one chance from Isaac right at the beginning of the game, they had very little in terms of chance creation. Tottenham just purely dominated Newcastle in terms of possession, and whenever we went forward we looked creative. I felt Kulusevski being back in the centre, he just had more options to play with when he's picking up the ball. I thought his chance creation was brilliant. I thought Pedro Porro, when he's passing from deep, he's if you're not pressing him and you're not restricting his time on the ball, he's proving that he's every bit as good as a lot of midfielders when he's on the ball, Pedro Porro. And you know, look, I can go into every player, but I felt like definitely this game we had that balance and of like loads of chances created and really stifling the opposition when it comes to their chances created. And I feel like during the season, sometimes the balance has been decent, but I think this was the first time it was at its peak, I felt like, this season, probably, I would say. I think a lot of games we've restricted the opposition by having created too much ourselves, and a lot of games we've created a lot but also given a lot. Like Villa, we created a lot, but also we gave up a lot as well. Like the balance wasn't quite right. But I felt like this game, the balance was absolutely spot on, and it's no surprise that was a consequence of Saab and Basuma playing together for the first time. Romero's back in the team as well, and also having Richie back in the form that he's been in, back in like the form after his surgery. He's looking sharper. He was pressing from the front. He added that energy as well. So I think for me, 100% best performance of the season, and the balance finally seemed to be there.
When you're looking at the game, Adam, obviously on paper, really difficult game at home to Newcastle, Champions League team. They dicked us 6-1 last season. Does it take any of the shine away, or maybe how hard we think the narrative of the game is when they're 16th on away form the whole season, only 5 points picked up, which is the same as Burnley, Nottingham Forest, only 1 point more than Luton? Does that take a bit away from the performance and result, or is it the same either way?
I don't think so personally, because I was saying this to Sean and to Dave very recently, that I'm long-term optimistic and short-term pessimistic at the moment, just for the fact that we have so many injuries. It put us in the position where I genuinely felt that for the next number of games we were going to end up with losses and draws across the board, up until about Bournemouth, is what I was saying. But not because I didn't have faith in Ange, not because I didn't think that we still had some star-studded players, but it's just that with the way that things weren't gelling, the way that we had such a strong squad for the first number of games, and then suddenly we have to completely replace so many 6-7 players. I wasn't expecting us to do well at any rate. And so when I'm looking at it from that perspective, I can only see positive. I don't see any shine being taken off of the situation. I see it as we overachieved. We did more than what I was anticipating, more than what I was expecting. Even though as I say, you're playing against a team that, and you pointed out as well, Newcastle have not done very well at all away, and that there's a degree to which you're expecting us to go out and do something, but we should have done something against Villa. We should have done something against West Ham as well, and it just wasn't working. So I certainly don't look at it from the perspective of seeing it as this. There are negatives, or we should be looking at it with that it's only half. The glass is only half full because of the team we were playing against. We could have easily gone out and lost that game. It's depending on the attitude we had, depending on the way that the players chose to go out and perform on the back of so many poor results. They could have had their confidence knocked and gone out there and been decimated on the back of just of playing against a very strong team and feeling like we were rattled, and not feeling like we were in good form. That's not the attitude they went out with. They went out with the attitude thinking, we're going to play our football. This is eventually going to click. This is eventually going to work. And in doing that, we got the points that we deserved on the day. So I wouldn't take anything away from what we saw on that particular in that game. I think that you can only look at it as positive in every single aspect. You can only look at it as positive, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, totally agree. And Dave, I remember speaking to you on your show with me, you and Sean, was it last week or the week before, saying, we're on this bad run, but I was telling you I wasn't worried, because you can see what Ange is trying to do. You can see we just need to fine tune a few things in the final third. And are we seeing that now?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see it. Look, I'm a big backer of Ange. When you put his style of football, which has been questioned all sort of season long, mainly by the media and the pundits out there, when you put it to the litmus test, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, teams like that, and I'd argue Chelsea if Romero didn't get sent off, that's the litmus test of it, because they're the teams that you have to ultimately beat, whether you want to pick up a domestic trophy in this country or whether you want to go on and win a league title. So when you put Ange Ball to the litmus test, I think it absolutely passes. My only worry was, would the sort of same old problems come back to haunt us? Because when you go back and look at patterns at this football club, Pochettino sacked in November, Nuno sacked in October. We got off to a very similar start after 13 games last season under Conte. It fell off around October, November, December when the international break started kicking in. Jose Mourinho, we were top of the league up until December. It fell off. So we actually historically over the last 4 years have a history of falling off around October, November, December in these sort of periods. And my worry was that the squad were yet again, when things go tough, ready to throw this manager under the bus. But where I think Postecoglou will not suffer the same fate as them other managers, which, by the way, I don't believe was the problem at Tottenham either, by the way, was he made some brave calls. what other manager in his predicament would have moved Son out of the middle, being our top goal scorer this season, the caliber of the player he is, and put him back out onto the left where it could have easily backfired. He's made a number of different changes, bringing Kulu off the wing through the middle to try and get us out of this period. He's more proactive about it in terms of his team selection. Look, I'm not really worried. I'm not really worried about where this is going to go. I'm actually positive. I think Ange is the right man for this football club. He sort of that period with all the injuries. Yeah, you could argue they're unlucky. I mean, I'd argue we man-made that problem in the summer by not doing enough squad rotation. We've still got players here that have not contributed this season that we knew needed to go in the summer. They would have freed up spaces for us to be able to bring more players in. How long have we been talking about doubling up on centre-backs here? Last January underneath Antonio Conte, we were told by the press, we're not getting any this January, we're getting 2 in the summer. We only brought in 1 for the first team this summer. Then when we get injuries with Van de Ven and Romero out, we're relying on guys that just either ain't good enough or pulling them in from other positions, and it's come back to haunt us. It's sort of, and it's the same every single season. When Premier League fixtures, League Cup fixtures, international fixtures, European fixtures, which we don't have this year, which is fine. Well, it's not fine, actually. As Spurs fan, we should always be in Europe. But, you know, when the fixtures come in thick and fast, we carry injuries, we carry suspensions. It's a normal part of football. But what we don't have is the squad depth to be able to get through this period. But thankfully, Andrew's willing to do stuff differently, which means, pull players in and ask them to do different other jobs, which is helping us get out of this period where I think other managers maybe not let themselves down, but maybe fail to do so in years gone by. So he's not just lying down on his sword and accepting it. He's being proactive about it. I'm really positive about Ange Postecoglou. I think what Jamie Redknapp said the other night was absolutely spot on, where he said, if Spurs sort of had better squad depth and we didn't have that period, we'd be top of the league right now.
Yeah, we really would. And a question back at you on that one, Dave, then, like when you're looking at the league table now and everything that we've been through over the last 4 or 5 weeks, only 7 points behind the top, only 6 points behind Arsenal in second. Can we do the unthinkable?
Look. Nothing's impossible, right? I'm one of them. I like to believe everything's impossible. If someone tells me it's impossible, I like to believe it's even more possible than ever before.
I'm only asking you this, Dave, because you used to come in here under Jose, under Conte, under everyone and say we were going to win the league. So I'll be disappointed if you can't say we win the league now.
Do you know what? If you asked me after 10 games or on that run, I would have said, yeah, no problem. Why can't we?
10 games or 10 points?
No, 10 games. Well, both had them, to be honest. But look, we have to. When I look at it, there's still certain individuals that I think aren't contributing and aren't good enough to be here. Whether with the performances have been there the last few weeks, when certain individuals step into the team, we keep saying we lose games regardless of the performance. So until that sort of changes, I'm not quite so sure. Look, if I bring the look of the Irish and we have great luck, we can get players back and stay injury-free season. With all the other clubs sort of in Europe, who knows? But look, right now, I'd take Champions League football, to be honest with you. From where we were in the summer, from where we were last season, no direction, every fan pissed off with the club, selling your best player. Look, I would have snapped your hand just to finish off in the top half of the table, but I'll definitely take top 4. But look, you just never know. Football's a wonderful game.
It most definitely is. And, you're looking at the fixture list, actually, and it does get me excited just looking at that fixture list because from now until April, we don't play, apart from Chelsea and Man U, we don't play any of the classic top 6 until April, which is crazy to me. I mean, you look at those games and, like, every single one of them, bar maybe Villa away, Newcastle away, back, that's also in April, look kind of winnable.
So we're all in agreement then.
We've got a load of games.
Go on, David.
We've got a load of games that are winnable. Oh, what's going on?
No, we can hear you,
I'm going
mate.
to log out, log back in. My
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay. All right. Yeah, look, we've got a favourable run of fixtures, but it all depends on the attitude. Against West Ham, I thought the attitude was piss poor. I don't think there was anyone there that really sort of wanted to go and grab the Graham by the scruff of the neck, if they realised it was a derby game and they felt it the way us fans would, they would have wanted to put West Ham through the sword. No one really wanted to step up. Look, I'd argue that's because we waste Son down the middle. When we were actually looking for someone like Son off the left to drive at players and make something happen. But look, they have to go into these games with the right attitude. Are they hurting because of that run of results? Let's wait and see. These squads in years gone by haven't been hurting on the run of results. There's a repeat of Jose left this club saying Tottenham don't want to be winners, whether you like them or not. Conte left this club saying Tottenham don't want to be winners. They can't play when the pressure's on. You look at Harry Kane when he left, whether people like the words or not. He said winning at Tottenham isn't the be all and end all. There's no consequences if you don't win. So it all depends whether we have a team that's hungry enough. There's a great saying, hungry dogs run faster. We were hungry Sunday. How long can we keep that going for? Because if we get back up into a title challenge, the pressure is all on again. The scrutiny on the club, Postecoglou, the players, ramps up tenfold like it did after that 10-game run. When that pressure comes on, we cannot handle it. We've shown that historically. So it's about whether they're hungry or not. Like I said, hungry dogs run faster.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. We've got a favourable fixture list between now and April in terms of there's no game you're going into it thinking there's no reason why we can't go and win that game. But Premier League I think this season is the most competitive I've seen it. And I think it's not about just getting the wins where you're expected to win. That's only half the job in a way, because I feel like a lot of teams at the moment are not winning games they're expected to win. And that if you're doing that, you're doing something incredible. So I don't think it's as easy as just winning those games you're expected to win, because all those games are going to be very, very difficult. I'm not looking at top place still. As much as we're close there and we're 7 points away, 16 games gone, obviously that's not that far away. And if you go on a run, who knows? But I'm still looking at top four. That's my focus at the moment, and that's very much gettable. And look, I think that has got to be the aim this season. I don't think you can be thinking about a title challenge, but I think as well, come later in the season, come March, April time, other teams might still be in Europe. We're going to still be playing one game a week. If we're there or thereabouts, then you start to think about maybe there is a real chance to really go for something special this season, because I'm sure the teams up there challenging for the title will probably have extra games. That's when squads get stretched and the pressure's on. And that's where we might have an advantage if we're actually still in a race at that point. But it's all about getting to April still in a position where you can actually say we can actually have a good go at it.
Yeah, I love it that we're sitting here talking about potentially winning the league when we've lost like 4 out of our last 6 games. But that's Tottenham Hotspur for you. But
you
anyway,
brought it up.
I know I brought it up. I know I brought it up. Look, you got a dream. You got a dream at the end of the day. And when you're only 6 points behind Arsenal, and in the next 2 games, we've got Forest away and Everton at home. Yeah, I know Everton are on great form, and Arsenal have to go to Anfield in that time. And they always seem to drop points at home to Brighton. We could, in the next 2 weeks, we could be 3-4 points behind Arsenal. And it could be turned into actually a dogfight or something going into the next few months. But look, we were here to talk about the Newcastle game. I think we're all in kind of agreement that it was our best game of the season. The next topic that I want to talk about, David kind of alluded to it just there, but Adam, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Me and Sim have been quite consistent in saying throughout the season, like, Sonny should be up front now, and we think like his time at left wing has kind of come and gone. But that performance against Newcastle kind of, I think, has changed our minds, and it was a bit of a throwback to what we have seen from Son over the last couple of years, or definitely throughout his Spurs career. So do you feel like Son should be staying out wide now?
That is the most confusing aspect of what we saw in Newcastle altogether. Like, there's nothing more baffling for 2 reasons. A, he's been playing in the number 9. We've kind of had the sense that he's lost a few yards regarding his pace. There's just been this consistent idea that, right, he's going to have to move into the number 9 now. He's doing a Cristiano Ronaldo at the end of the day. I mean, he started out as a wide man, incredibly fast, to be able to do amazing things, but he's getting to in his latter years as far as football years are concerned, and he needs to move into that number 9. So that's where it seemed like he was going to do the most damage, especially considering that he had the numbers. If you're looking at the top scorers of the league so far, he's way up there. And so you're thinking, right, he's our bet in number 9, and again, it comes down to where it felt like it made the most sense. But then you're also looking at it from the perspective of every single time Son comes off the pitch, we've seen images and videos of him in absolute agony. And I'm thinking, is this man able to play the same way anymore? Is he able to be that guy? Like, it's difficult enough watching him come off in pain when he's kind of, in some matches, he's hanging up in the number 9 position on his own, not really able to get into the game because we're really terrible in the low block, and he's not able to get the ball. He's not able to keep the ball. And he's not even doing all that much in those particular games, and yet he's still coming off looking like he's in absolute agony. Then you're seeing him in this game where he gets pushed back out into the wide position. He's doing all the running. He's crossing balls. He's able to shake off Trippier like he's not even there. He's maneuvering into the box and able to get the assists. Where is that coming from suddenly? Like, it's completely and utterly baffling. That's not the Son that we've experienced for the last, whatever it is, 14 games. And like, I don't like going forward. One game does not a pattern make. So it's difficult to kind of go, yeah, okay, 100%, yeah, he has to be out there on the left side now. We don't know, because he could go out on the left side in the next game, a few games, and be anonymous or not be able to shirk his man, and so it's just it leaves way more questions than answers. I would love to think that we could do that. Having Sonny play in that position is where we've seen Sonny do his best work down through the years. He's my favorite player of all time. I absolutely love the guy, and to see him go back into that run of form and be not only the super winger that we've always known and loved, but to be our captain and galvanize the team from that position would be outstanding. And if again, one game does not a pattern make, but Richarlison has come in and scored 2 goals, and suddenly he seems like he's got a bit of confidence, even though he's dyed his hair again, which it seems to be his kryptonite somehow in previous games. If he's able to continue a run of form from that in the number 9 position, which I've always maintained is Richarlison's best position. I know, Sim, that you've made a point of saying that for Everton he's actually done better out on the left or whatever, but I think that just as an overall picture of seeing his performances playing in the number 9 for Everton and for Brazil, where he scored absolute worldies from that position. I think that it would be tremendous to think that going forward we could play Son on the left, Richarlison in the number 9, and see the best possible version of ourselves. We wouldn't, if we had all our players fighting fit, we wouldn't even need to bring anybody in to replace anybody in that starting 11, because we all thought that we were Richarlison out on the left, that was our weakest position. If we could replace him, the other 10 were fine. But now if Richarlison is playing in the 9 and is doing his best, and Sonny goes out on the left and is doing his best, we have, again, it's crazy to think that there's not a team out there who could come up against us. We'd be absolutely phenomenal. But we cannot assume that based on one game that Sonny has found his perfect position and Richarlison has found his perfect position. It could have just been a once-off. So again, it's more questions than answers, but I'm dying to find out what the answers are. I can't wait to see us going out against Nottingham Forest and seeing I want the lineup to be exactly the exact same as it was against Newcastle. And if we go out and do it again, then my mouth will be watering, because it's that situation where you're thinking we are continuing to show that we are on a road to being the biggest force to be reckoned with in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like it's going that way, but I would leave the hair reviews to David, to be honest. I think he's missing a few after Harry Kane has left the club. But in terms of Heung-min Son, Dave, I've never seen a left back, a top right back, by the way, get absolutely destroyed, probably since Maicon came to the lane when Gareth Bell absolutely ripped him a new one. But I know you're Philly, you want to see Son just stick out to the left, but maybe is it just a case of different games call for different solutions?
Look, there's an element to that, but I think the biggest thing that everybody's sort of missing when it comes to that, first of all, by the way, I predicted Son out on the left and Richarlison through the middle of my predicted lineups on Saturday night and my reasons why, and it actually came to fruition in the game. But look, I think one thing that everybody's missing is we sold Harry Kane in the summer, but all we've done is move the problem from striker out to left wing. I'd argue we still have that striker problem. But now everyone's talking about the left wing. So all we've done is actually just shifted the position of the problem because we've used Son to cover up that problem of missing Harry Kane. But look, when it comes to Son, right? Don't get me wrong. He's been playing through a lot of pain. Last season, everyone formed a narrative that he can't play on the left anymore. He's lost a yard of pace. But it turned out at the end of the season, it came out. He was playing through injury all season and need to go and get surgery. At the start of this season, when Postecoglou went to try it, Son wasn't fit. He only had surgery right before preseason, so he wasn't fit enough, in my opinion, to play out there. But we've got a huge problem with that at Tottenham. Richarlison, playing through that injury. He's had his surgery. He looked so much better at the weekend in his all-round game. Maddison playing through injury ends up going out for longer term. We've got a huge problem with this at Tottenham, expecting our players to continuously play through a lot of playing, and that is because of squad depth issues. Managers are asking them to do it because they don't trust the guys by other positions to come in and have the same impact. But when you look at Son up front, he's been absolutely brilliant, by the way. But he suits teams that want to come and press us, wants to come out and play out the back, where they leave sort of that space in behind so he can make them runs. That's what Sonny is brilliant at, is them runs in behind the back line. But the problem you've got when you've got Son up front is you don't have a target man in the box to play off of or to aim at. When Brennan Johnson and Kudo are both doing the same thing, like you've seen at West Ham, both cutting inside, the problem isn't them wanting to go on the outside and put crosses in the box. They're not doing it because Sonny's not that guy. To go and meet crosses and stuff like that. That's not his strength. But also with Son, you miss the ability to create. You've got to look at the numbers. Is he scoring any more up front than what he would have off the left-hand side? No. But what you are missing is his creativity from the left-hand side. So I'd argue you're only getting 50% of Son because he's not scoring anymore, but then you're losing that creativity with him down the middle. You also have to almost score the perfect goal with Sonny down the middle. And that's nothing against Son, by the way. He's been shoehorned in from the left-hand side to up front, which is not his natural position, and he's absolutely made it work. But what we do miss is that natural striker in the box that makes them 5-yard bursts, makes one run, makes another, like Richarlison did for that first goal. Made an initial dart towards the near post, then pulled back to receive it to be able to tap it at home. We don't have that with Son. What did Harry Kane do against low block teams at times? Pin his man and almost show the midfielder the path for him to play that ball into. Son doesn't have that. Son wants to come out and get the ball to feet and run at players. That's what he's good at. So for me, putting him back out on the left-hand side is an absolute masterstroke. Everyone was looking for someone like what Son done against Newcastle at West Ham to step up and be that guy to create, grab the Graham by the scruff of the neck. Son done that against Newcastle, and for me, it was great. I remember him picking up the ball on the halfway line and just absolutely driving at Newcastle. And it brought back images of that Burnley goal, the Puskas goal, getting Son back to his best. And for me, I think we do still have a striker problem at Tottenham Hotspur. We tried to cover it up by playing Son through the middle, but I think you're actually limiting Son's abilities of what he can do and any effect he can have on the game by doing that. So, look, I think Son should be out on the left and Richarlison through the middle, but that does also all depend on Richarlison backing up. We've been here with Richarlison before where he scored a goal. Everyone's like, right, now's the time, and it never happens. So I'm actually at the point, although I do believe Son's best position is on the left, that's where you see the best of him. Realistically, right now, until we solve that striker issue, his position is best wherever we need him to fill in, whether it is up front for a game or whether it's on the left wing. If Richarlison ain't doing it, you've got to play him back up front, realistically.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, to be honest. And I feel like when teams are playing a high line against us, I do feel like Son does, influence the game best when he's central there so he can get onto those runs. But Sim, as a massive believer of, Son can't play on the left anymore, what's your opinion on it now after seeing the last game?
I'm not a massive believer that he can't play on the left anymore.
That's what you were saying.
No. I never said I actually specifically said he can do it, but he definitely can't do it to the level he used to be able to do it at. And I
do you still believe that?
Yeah, I still believe that because I know he had a brilliant game against Newcastle. Don't get me wrong. He absolutely gave Trippier nightmares. But what I would say is Trippier is clearly going through something at the moment in terms of his personal performance. He's really struggling for fitness. He's running on fumes. I've heard a lot of Newcastle fans saying that he's absolutely knackered. He's played every minute of every game and he's not had a rest the whole season, and he's clearly struggling at the moment. You saw against Everton in the last game. He made some really bad mistakes in that one, and he was really struggling in that game as well. And I think in this game, I think he had the same problems. Not to say, look, obviously, when you come up against a good player like Trippier and he's struggling, you still got to take full advantage, and you have to be a good player to do that. And that's exactly what Son did. And Son absolutely ripped him apart, and it was beautiful to watch. But I still question whether he is that player out wide that Ange really wants, in terms of a player who's really good one-on-one with his fullback, who's really, when they when he comes up against a fullback who's aggressive, who's quick, who's not basically as tired as Trippier was, is he going to have as much success in those situations as he did on Sunday? Look, we have to wait and see. I don't know. And then, as I say, I don't think Son is completely finished on the left. I just think his best position, and I think where you're getting his biggest talents is centrally, because I still think his best assets are his finishing ability and his ability in front of goal, and the best way to get him there is in the central position. And I disagree a bit with Dave in terms of when he said, would Son still score the same amount of goals out on the left as he does centrally? And Dave said yes. I don't think he would, especially in Ange's system. I think the wingers are very much out wide. I think in generally they don't cut inside. They like to stay wide, and that's how they create the creativity to open up more space in the centre. And I think when Son was out on the left on Sunday, he was very creative, but he wasn't getting many goal scoring positions. And then he went central in the latter part of the game and looked very dangerous as well. And then he did start getting goal scoring positions, and he could have ended up with more than a goal apart from his penalty on Sunday when he went central. So I would like to keep him on the left for now, because I think I want to pursue with Richarlison in what I think is his best position for this system, I think, which is up front. I question if he's better on the left or up front in general, but I do think in Ange's system, Richarlison's best position is up front, because I don't see him as a very creative left winger, to be honest. Albeit, I do think his best performances this season have been on the left. I do think that's true. But
his best performance.
But I would say, I agree. His best performance of the season was probably on Sunday, and that was centrally. But I think in general, he's probably been a bit better when we've seen him on the left than he has been. Whatever, we'll get into Richarlison later. But when it comes to Son, I think for now, I want to keep him out wide. I want to continue that dynamic and see. And I guess I want to see more of him out wide, see if he can keep up what he showed on Sunday, I guess. But if I'm looking at Son as a player, his profile, obviously he looked so sharp on Sunday. He looked very quick, and he was really giving Trippier a hard time. But I've seen Son enough times struggle to beat his man consistently over a decent period for me, and still have that finishing ability in front of goal to suggest to me I don't think that, for me, it was an issue, especially in the beginning of the season, of him being just come back from injury and stuff like that. I think he does struggle sometimes to consistently beat his man out wide and really take the game to them. And I think that I still believe his strongest asset is his shooting and finishing ability, and I really believe to get the best out of that, he needs to be central. But as you say, I think different games.
Push back on that a little.
I think different games probably do call for different solutions. Go on, Dave.
Just push back on that a little, Sim. Do you not think Son has been lost at times in games this season, especially against low-block teams up front?
Yeah, I do think that's happened. But I also think that can happen to a lot of strikers who we know that in Ange's system, it's you do a lot of thankless running, don't you? And you do a lot of stuff where it goes unnoticed, and you do a lot of pressing. Look, that's not to say. Look, he struggled in some games. You can't play well every game, and 100%. There have definitely been some games where he has struggled, and there are some games probably where he would have been better off having a more physical presence like Richarlison and him off the left. And we had those options. Maybe it would have been better. I agree with you. I just think in general, I would rather see him in more often than not down the centre than out wide, which creates his own problems. But I agree with you. Maybe there have been some games where maybe it would have been better off for him on the left. I agree with that. I do agree with that.
I mean, that's what it comes down to for me. I think against teams that play that high line, I would like to see him more consistent and stay in the central, because I think that's where he affects the game the most against those kind of teams. But when you're playing against a more kind of defensively structured side and the low block sides, I think he probably is best to serve out wide, where not only can he do what he did to Trippier and consistently attack his fullback, but he also can cut inside and create those goal scoring actions like he has done so many times. I know it's not a kind of way that Ange likes to play his football and the way his philosophy works, but this season we have seen our wingers do cut inside when they need to. Kulusevski does it time and time again. Sonny can do it. So I don't see why it can't be a facet of our game moving forward into the season, where Sonny plays up front against, your Liverpools, your Man Cities and Arsenals and these kind of teams. And then when we play against the low structured, rigid teams like maybe in Nottingham Forest or whoever it may be, then he goes back out wide. Adam, how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I don't mind seeing. We don't need to be rigid and calcified with the players and the positions that they're going to be in. If we want to start maneuvering things, and it makes more sense to strategize specifically for every individual opponent that we're coming up against. You wouldn't want to have a hard and fast rule. This is the team we have. This is the way we're going to go out. This is the way we're going to play every single time. And it's frustrating. That we haven't quite learned how to break down the low block teams yet, but I'm sure that will come. But the only way that we're going to do it is by playing a different strategy than when we're playing against the people who are going to come at us. And so I do think that from time to time, it is a good idea to move Sonny out to the left and then maybe move him back again. Depending on who we're up against, for sure. I'm completely okay with that. I would take umbrage with what Dave said, though, in terms of he's guaranteed to have gotten as many goals if he had been playing out on the left. I'm not sure I agree.
History proves that, though. He won the Golden Boot playing off the left.
Yes, he did, on a different season.
Exactly.
It's
in
not
a different system,
season.
Though. Different system as well.
Different system, different season. I can't imagine that if Sonny had started and continued to play out on the left for the entirety of this season thus far, I don't think that he'd have the goals that he has at the moment. But that's just, it's obviously just my opinion. But we can't say one way or the other. You couldn't say for sure dogmatically that he would be getting the same amount of goals out on the left. I think it's been a good idea to have him playing the number 9 thus far. But the fact that he's shown us in that last game that there's still a boy in there. Do you know what I mean? There's still he's still able to get out and do the business, do what needs to be done on that left hand side. So having options is obviously, it's always going to be a good thing, always, especially with someone of his caliber. All right,
David, do you want to say anything before we move on?
I think you're all deluded and wrong. I think Son is better on the left-hand side. For sure. People say I can't say that, but the reality is it was harder to score goals in contest system because you're defending for larger periods. And if you can score enough goals off the left, under Jose Mourinho, under Conte, I don't want anyone to tell me he can't do it in a system where we're actually playing football under Ange Postecoglou.
He was 2 years younger, mate.
What I'm also
2 years younger.
Look, what I'm also trying to add in is the creativity that Son offers. We get more out of him off the left in terms of his all-round game than what we do shoehorning him up front. Shoehorning him up front, you're only really getting his finishing ability, but you're not really seeing much else.
That's his best asset. That's his best asset, isn't it?
What?
His finishing is his best asset.
Mm-hmm.
No, his creativity has always been as good at Tottenham as well. You can't look. People are focused on his finishing right now because he's been playing up front, of course, rightly so. But people have forgotten the creativity that Son brings, the creativity side of Son that he's always had in his game, and you lose that when you play him centrally. He can't get on the ball and affect the game as much as he does off the left-hand side in terms of creativity. And I'd argue it's the most balanced that forward line has looked all season long. And the reason why is you have Son back in his natural position, and Richarlison, even on that 10-game run, I was still sitting there saying that front line does not quite look right to me. There's still a lot more to come for it, and there's no coincidence that we look so much more balanced with a proper striker in the striker role and a left winger in the left wing role.
Yeah, I agree. It was the most balanced with the front line that we've looked all season. I completely agree with that. And maybe you have a point to what you're saying as well, because Sonny did break the record for the most assists for Tottenham in the Premier League era on the weekend, overtaking Christian Eriksen, which some people say our most creative player in the Premier League era. So what would you say to that, Sim?
No, I'm not saying he's not creative, and I think he is a creative player. I just think the stats show his best, and I think you can see his best asset of the game for Son is his finishing ability, and the best way to make most use of that is him centrally. And I think as well, I don't think you completely lose all of his creativity in central, because when it comes to chances created, it was still, I think before the game on the weekend, he was near the top for strikers when it comes to chances created. So clearly he's still got that element to his game as well, even when he's maybe not as much as out wide, but he still definitely has it a bit when he's playing centrally. I think he created 7 big chances or something from the striker position. So he still definitely has that element to his game. But look, I loved seeing how he played out wide on Sunday. If he's going to have more performances like that consistently, I'm very happy for him to play there more regularly. I just look at Son and I think about what is he truly elite at, and I think it's finishing in front of goal. And I think to get him in front of goal as many times as possible, that's going to be the best way to get the best out of Son, in my opinion.
All right.
I hear you, but I would also add he doubled his assists by playing off the left wing. He only had 2 before that. Now he's on 4. He's absolutely doubled it. So I would argue that we haven't seen the creativity when you look at terms of the assists and stuff like that this season compared to.
Not hard to double too.
How many goals has he scored as a left winger though this season?
None.
Well, he scored one at the weekend, penalty.
Yeah, penalty.
No,
yeah.
he was a striker. He was up front at that point. Richarlison had gone off
majority of the game and he scored. Look, I'm
no,
telling you now.
When he scored, he was a striker. He was up front.
Yeah, but he played left majority of the game and he still scored.
Oh,
that's my point,
he hasn't scored any goals when he's been off the left this season. That's the truth. He's played about 4 games there.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But the creativity is better.
Look, I think, as we said, we can argue this till the cows come home, but essentially it does kind of say, like, you need to tailor it for each specific game. And I think some games he'll be better off the left, some games he'll be better off number 9. The great thing about Heung-min Son, he's a world-class player no matter where you play him, whether you play him at number 9, whether you play him at left wing. We've got an absolutely world-class player on our hands, and I think that's just what it boils down to at the end of the day. Let's move on and let's talk about Richarlison now. Obviously, he had his best performance in a Spurs shirt on the weekend. I can already see Dave about to shake his head with what I'm about to say. But, you know, Dave, you did speak earlier on saying it's no coincidence that Sonny, after he puts his injury problems behind him, gets his surgery done and recovers from that, you see a much better Heung-min Son. Well, can we say the same? I'll go to Adam first, but can we say the same about a Richarlison now? Because he's put his problems behind him in terms of injuries. He's had the surgery and he's looking much better for it, especially in his first game back. So have we seen the real Richarlison in that game now?
I don't think we've seen the real Richarlison until we're seeing him absolutely blow teams away. I think that I really think that there's a serious player in there that's being completely underrated, and I don't begrudge anybody for underrating him because he hasn't come in and set the world on fire at Tottenham for numerous different reasons. A huge part of it for me is that he hasn't had a consistent run of games in the number 9, which I maintain is his best position. When you look at what he does for Brazil. I just think that there's way more to come from him, and I'm still one of those in the camp of we would be remiss, especially after spending 60 million on him, we would be remiss to let him go now and not give him the opportunity to do what I believe he does best. And I've had this conversation on Sean Butler's channel all the time, and he says, you're only saying that because you've got a Brazilian wife. And to that I say, Emerson Royal is not someone that he's not the kind of person, he's not the player that I'm going to die on.
Emerson's not really Brazilian, Adam. I don't know if you got the memo.
Lucas Moura is another one that I love that man to death. I absolutely love that man. I'd love to meet him in real life and buy him a pint and have a chat with him. But I was saying that he needed to be let go about 2 seasons before we let him go. So it's not my Brazilian bias that has me saying that I want Richarlison in. For me, Richarlison genuinely is a baller, and it's just a case of us not having had the opportunity to see that materialize yet. It hasn't come to fruition as of yet, but I think that if we just give him that little bit more time, keep him in the number 9, as you said yourself, he's had the surgery now. Hopefully those 2 goals will give him the confidence that he needs to go out and do exactly what we know he can do. The dude, like, those 2 goals were the first 2 goals he scored for Tottenham with his feet. Every single other time he scored with his head. The dude is unbelievable in the air. And now he's got his shooting boots on as well. I think that he could be an absolute nightmare for teams if we continue to pursue with him in the number 9, let him do what he's capable of doing. I think that he could be for Tottenham infinitely greater than we ever saw him be for Everton. So I just think that like we need to persist with him as far as I'm concerned.
For you, Dave, do you think that Richarlison really needs to prove it now before, let's say, January, or give him till the end of the season? I mean, what's your opinion on Richarlison?
Yeah, look, he's much better down the middle and Sonny on the left. I mean, Ange Postecoglou, right? So all of you are wrong on that. But no, look, when it comes to Richarlison, look, injuries, we have a huge problem with that, making players play through pain. And Postecoglou alluded to it before the game, that he looks a lot fresher in training. He's moving a lot better in training and stuff like that. And I think ultimately we've seen that on the football pitch, right? Things where I've been really frustrated with his game, getting the ball under control, first touch, laying it off to people. It's been so very inconsistent. In fact, I'd argue nearly not there for the large part of this season. But since that surgery, he looks like a brand new player. It was a great performance from him at the weekend against Newcastle. But if we want to get back to having great strikers at Tottenham, which I've always had in my lifetime, that's why I will not settle for anything less, because I've been absolutely spoiled in that department my whole life, is he needs to back it up. Great strikers back it up every single week, or the majority of the games over the course of the season. With Richarlison, it's been very stop-start, and you could put that down to injury, I suppose. But look, I think he's got, this month, potentially a run in January, maybe towards the end, to try and save his Spurs career. And it's up to him to do that now. Postecoglou also said that, all the club can do is keep providing these guys with chances. It's up to them if they want to grab that opportunity. He grabbed that at the weekend. I thought 2 great goals. You look at the first one, made a dart to the near post, then pulled off 2 quick movements in the space of a second to be able to put himself in the right position to receive the ball from Sonny. And then the second goal, I know a lot of people say it's a bad touch. I'd argue it's a good touch. He took it completely away from the keeper and managed to knock it.
Did he mean it, though? Did he mean it?
I'd say yes. Personally. He's been watching Harry Kane for years do that, so I think he's just learning off the big man himself. But look, he's got to back it up. By no means am I going to sit here and say he's the answer this season off one game. One game isn't good enough for me. It needs to be the majority of games this season. So let's see how he does. But I will say, I really do enjoy the pigeon dance. And
Sim, a player that's outscoring Martinelli for Arsenal, double the goal contributions that Gabriel Jesus has as well. It's not too bad for a £60 million flop, is it?
It's doing all right. I mean, if you put it like that, he's having a great season. I think we can all safely say that this season's performances have, before Sunday, by and large, have been extremely poor, very frustrating, and it's been something that a lot of people have been questioning whether he has a future here with a lot of the performances he's been playing. And albeit there was a period during the season, I remember the Fulham game, Liverpool, there was a bit of a period where he was out on the left. After he came in against Sheffield United, he scored a goal, got an assist in that game. Like, he was going through a bit of a decent period.
Kind of always felt like you could get more from him, though.
Exactly.
They weren't like top performances. They were just better performances.
Exactly. You always felt like you wanted more from him. And you always felt like it was good, but it wasn't incredible. I think Sunday was the first performance where I really saw him and I was like, okay, this is the player I think we saw from at Everton. A lot freer in his movement, so much more energetic in the front line, really hounding the opposition, winning the ball back on the halfway line on a couple of occasions. There was a couple of dribbles in there where he just seemed a lot more flexible and a lot more dynamic in his movement as well. And obviously he had the confidence to get his 2 goals, and I thought his general play was a lot stronger than it has been during the season. During the season, as David said, he's just struggled to just do simple layoffs, control a simple first touch, a simple pass. And it's really been very frustrating. And to Adam's point, I disagree, but I do think he had a bit of a run right at the beginning of the season where I think the first 3 games of the season, or 4 games of the season, he was playing up front as a number 9.
No, he was out on the left. The first couple of games of the season. I don't think he got too much.
It was the first 2 games.
Up until Burnley. So first 3, I think.
Wasn't Man United as well? Sonny played up front.
No, he didn't.
Or was it just Burnley?
Richarlison. It was up until Burnley. Richarlison was up front. So I think that's the first 3 games of the season, and he really flattered to deceive. But maybe it was because he was carrying this injury. Now we have more information. Us football fans, we always judge very harshly, but we can only judge by the information we have. We didn't know about these mental issues he's been going through, these physical problems he's been going through, and obviously he's now come out that he's had these problems, and hopefully he's put those to bed finally, which is something he's clearly been struggled with. And Sunday was the first time I think physically we saw just a much more dynamic Richarlison, and it's very exciting to see. And I just hope this is what he carries on with, and that's the Richarlison we see going forward, because I know there's a much better player than what we've seen in a Tottenham shirt, much better. He's been a shadow of the player that we've seen at Everton, 100%, and he was a player at Everton who always gave a good game against the better teams as well. Always stepped up for the big games and was one always
scoring against Liverpool, didn't he?
Yeah, Liverpool, Arsenal, I remember, always gave him a good game. Man United, he always turned up in these games. Like, this is a player as well who, when he's on your side, the fans loved and they adored. He was always putting in 100%, always putting in big challenges. He was always a nuisance for the opposition centre-backs as well. So I think if we can get back to that, 100%, he's gonna have a big part to play from now to the end of the season, because it's almost as if people have forgotten about Richarlison in a way. When you think about our front line and what we can do, like, people don't even consider what Richarlison because of how bad he's been over the last 18 months. But it's almost like, in a way, if he can play like he did on Sunday, it would be like a new signing in a way.
He's had a lot of problems since joining Tottenham. Obviously last year, bit part role, sometimes on the right, in his least favoured position. He had his injury problems last year as well. Start of this season, he's been completely not right in probably a system that's more suited to him this season. But he has been playing with injury. He's needed the surgery and has come back much better in that first game. We all kind of make... we put it to one side when we talk about Sonny, and we talk about Sonny playing through injury last year, and we kind of forgive him for the performances last year. And, Dave said, even in the first few games of the season, he was coming back from injury, and we make excuses for Sonny, and we accept those excuses. So why don't we accept those excuses for Richarlison?
Because his name isn't Son. He has Richie in front of it, so that's his problem.
Is it because Sonny's got a lot more credit in the bank? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Son's been doing it for years, right? As well, Richie came in at a time where we need players to make that instant impact, that instant jump, to really sort of try and pull us out, and he hasn't done it. So, look, I can understand the narrative around Richie, but look, more goals and contributions than Jesus, than Rasmus Højlund, than Martinelli seems to get a lot of praise, and there's one more guy there as well. I can't remember his name. So
Rashford.
Maybe there is Rashford as well. So maybe there is a little bit of an unfair narrative around Richarlison. But look, we don't have patience for players anymore, because we're sick of players coming into this club and taking the piss out of it, like we've seen over the last three to 4 years. Especially under Steve Hitchen, and a lot of his signings came to this football club, took big, massive wages, but didn't want to put the performances in on the football pitch. So I can understand the lack of tolerance towards it.
And it's also like it's just the fact of the matter is, it can be excuses, but we just, in terms of Son, we've seen what he can do in the Spurs shirt. We just haven't seen it from Richarlison, so it's hard to make excuses for him. I know we've seen it for Everton, but it's one thing seeing it for another team. We have to see it, in a Spurs shirt, and we just haven't seen it at all. Yeah,
I do get kind of tired of it though, like saying when people say, oh, he's terrible, he's a terrible footballer. But I mean, yes, he has been a terrible footballer for Tottenham. There's no getting away from that. For the majority of his Spurs career, he has been terrible. But that doesn't mean he is actually a terrible footballer, because we've seen him perform in previous clubs in his career, for Everton, for Watford, for Brazil. We've seen him do it consistently for those kind of teams. So who's to say if he doesn't put his injury problems behind him, getting him in a system that suits him, which I think Ange Ball does suit him, especially in the number 9 role, who says he can't turn this around? We've seen players turn it around in the past when they've had terrible starts in a Spurs career, or terrible starts, for other clubs as well. So what's saying that Richarlison can't turn it around? Go to you, Adam.
You're singing from my hymn sheet now, mate. Absolutely singing from my hymn sheet now. I'm not saying, I would never suggest that he has an infinite amount of time to prove himself. Of course not. But I have consistently maintained that he needs to have a good run of games to be able to get into for us to be able to say that we really gave him a chance. He has to have a consistent number of games, which, I mean, we used to give players a long time ago. Do you know what I mean? People would how like Gareth Bale got like a ridiculous amount of chances, more than we felt he deserved in the beginning when he was playing at left back. And the guy, you know, to me, he seemed like he was one of the worst left backs in the world at one stage. And then, but we gave him enough of an opportunity to finally prove himself, and we realized what his strengths are, what his utility was. So we used to do that. Now it's like, oh, you haven't performed in 2 games, sell him, and it's just mental. So I think that, as long as, again, you know, I'm not saying that we have to give him an infinite number of chances, and I'm not saying that, like, by next summer, if he hasn't shown some quality, then I wouldn't lament letting him go. But I do think that I'd still be a little bit sore about it if we don't give him a consistent run of games where he's able to show what he's able to do. Now, what we saw on against Newcastle means that for the next number of games, whether he is performing or not, we should have him in the number 9, giving him that run of games to be able to show his quality. If at that point he's not doing it, okay, fine, let him go in the summer. I still wouldn't let him go in January, but let him go in the summer if we absolutely have to. But he needs to be given the time. You gotta give him the time, because there is a player in there. I truly believe it. I think anybody who has been following him, you know, my concern with a lot of people who throw him under the bus is that they're not really paying that much attention. They're not really being honest about the amount of time that they've given the guy attention and you know, tracked him, seen what he's done for Everton. I absolutely hated Richarlison when he played for Everton. He was my least favorite player in the whole league, only because of his shithousery, right? He just annoyed me to no end.
But then when he joined,
absolutely couldn't stand him. And then as soon as he joined us, it was like, yeah, but he's doing it for us now. And it, you know, I think that it is a case of I believe that I have been, because of my loathing for him at one stage, I paid a lot of attention to him when he was at Everton. I'm really keeping an eye on what he's doing at Spurs more than most, and I'm obviously watching every single Brazil game because of my wife. So I really think that I've seen enough to know that there is there's a serious baller in there. He just needs to be given the opportunity.
Do you think, like, the kind of patience with the Spurs fan base is because of maybe the big money that we did pay for him, 60 million, and also when we have paid that money to sign players more or less every single time they haven't worked out? You look at Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, Ryan Sessegnon, you know, all these players that we spent massive money on, none of them have worked out. So I don't know. For me, like, he is in last chance saloon now, because he hasn't been great. He's been terrible pretty much since pulling on that Spurs shirt. But now those injuries, problems are behind him. For me, there's no excuses now from now until the end of the season. If he doesn't do it from now until the end of the season, for me, we got to get rid of him. But he has to be given that chance, right?
Yeah, and I'm with you there. I'm absolutely 100% with you. If he hasn't shown his quality by the end of the summer, regardless, but by the time the summer rolls around, then regardless, we need to upgrade. And I'm totally down with that. I just always felt like we need to give him enough of a chance. And you're right. It's 2 things as far as I'm concerned. One is that we paid 60 million for him, so there is a degree to which you expect a return immediately. I can respect that up to a point. But the second half of the coin is just people's impatience. People are not willing to give players time anymore. We're living in a fast food generation where everybody wants what they want now. They don't want to wait for it, and they're not willing to give it time. And there is a degree to which Richarlison's sort of, his body language doesn't ingratiate himself with the fans. So, like, Ange comes in, and the charisma of the man, you'd give the guy 4 years to get the team into the shape it needs to be to go on and win titles and win cups again. You'd give it to him because of his charisma. Richie, I think he's a bit like Marmite. You either love him or you hate him, just in terms of his personality. So with a lot of the fans, I'd say as well, he hasn't necessarily ingratiated himself. So they don't have that tolerance and they don't have that patience. But I think patience is something we need to learn to develop as a society in general, but also as Tottenham Hotspur fans. And I think that we should start with Richarlison. Give him the time he needs. Give him till the summer, and we see how we get on.
Any response to that, Dave?
Look, I don't. To the unfair narrative surrounds them, I get it to a certain degree, but it is the players' performances on the pitch that drives these narratives. The fans don't just pluck it out of the air and to go on some sort of agenda. It's because of the performances that we're seeing on the pitch. And look, we're seeing this with a lot of players, over the last couple of seasons, that Paratici has brought into this club, where they're almost written off before they got here. People are already Rick Kulu off before he even stepped foot on the pitch for Tottenham Hotspur, and that is something that has to change. But however, I do feel like a bit of a fraud asking the fan base to, show a little bit of patience, even when it's behind Ange Postecoglou, because we've been patient. We've been patient for them to get this sorted out since the Champions League final and get a squad fully capable of going and competing. We've shown more than enough patience. But at the end of the day, I think fans are right to hold players to a higher standard. It's not a bad thing at the end of the day. If the player ain't good enough to meet them standards, then just bin him and get the next guy in that does. Football, the way football's going, it doesn't have patience anymore. It's instant. You've got to try and do the right things to go and do it now. And look, when it comes to players, if you don't want that narrative surrounded by you, do what we bought you to do on the football pitch. It's that simple. Too many players come to this club and taking the piss, not performing. And what that does then is if other players come in and they're injured and stuff like that, they automatically get sort of thrown into that category just purely because of what's gone on before them. Look, I think the problem's twofold. I think the fans are right to do it, but also, I do think he's been lumped in with other players, and his injury hasn't been enough.
So having said that, Dave, how long do you give him? Do you agree with me? Give him till the end of the season? Or, I remember having a chat with you on your show a couple of weeks ago with Sean saying, let's just get rid of him in January, because at that point we'd literally seen absolutely nothing from him. So where's your head at now after that game?
Look, I think we'll have to give him to the end of the season. Tottenham ain't going to go out and spend 60, 70, 80 million on a striker in the January transfer window. And the reason why it probably has to be that much is because you're looking at the caliber of player. We brought in Valise for a couple of million, but the guy just ain't ready to come in and fill the boots. Look, for me, I think you've got to give Richarlison till the end of the season at this point. But if he doesn't do it, I don't want to see any more. No, sell him. Try and get rid of take cut price, because all you're doing is you're going to delay the inevitable of bringing in a striker. We've seen that with the likes of Ndombele. For years, we keep loaning them out. We're not dealing with the problem. Joe Roden, we keep loaning them out. We're not dealing with the problem. And then when it comes to relying, you've got injuries and stuff, you're like, okay, let's bring in some bodies. You ultimately end up relying on the same guys. Even a Celso, 4 years for him to come here to start performing. I don't want to see this problem dragged out. If it ain't working in the summer, take a hit on it. You got it wrong. Get the next guy in here.
Sim, do you agree? I mean, is it a case of giving him until the summer, or do you think the trust or the expectations should extend after the summer?
Well, he can't be performing like he has been for most of the season until the summer and expect more time. Definitely not. So 100% he needs to show something. But if he can, get between 10 to 15 goal contributions between now and the end of the season.
Well, he's already on 6.
Yeah. So, he gets maybe between 10 and 15.
If he gets 10 goal contributions, total from now to the end of the season, I mean, from the beginning of the season to the end, I would say that's quite poor, to be honest, if he's already on 6.
No, I'm saying he needs to get 15 then. So 15, or between 15 and 20 maybe. Then I think he would earn another season. But there's all context. Obviously, you have to show on the pitch that he's playing well as well. It's not just about the goal contributions. But I want to see quality from him. That's been something that's severely lacking from him since he's come to Tottenham. But I'm willing to. I haven't given up on him yet, 100%. If he shows more performances like on Sunday, then he's got more than a part to play. So obviously he needs to up his game. He needs to be showing more consistency and more quality from now to the end of the season. But it obviously depends. It depends how he ends the season if he's going to get more time.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last topic of the panel, and we're going to be talking about our flying fullbacks in Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie. I'm already seeing some smiles on the faces of Adam and David, willing to get their teeth stuck into this one. We'll start with you again, Adam, on this one. And the question is, do we have the best fullback pairing in the Premier League at the moment?
That was literally what I was going to start with. We have. Of course we have. Absolutely. I don't care what anyone says. When it comes to individual quality, it's very difficult to make a case that anybody on the right wing back at the moment is better than Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's having an absolute blinder, phenomenal. Although he's not playing in the traditional right back or right wing back role, he's very much kind of he's given a lot more freedom to play into that midfield. But the dude is just on another level. He is on another level. And you could make an argument for different individual players. You could have your top four on either side, but in terms of which team has the greatest pairing, which team has the most solid left wing back and right wing back, there's no argument. Tottenham, Porro and Udogie are absolute ballers. They're outstanding. The contributions that they're making, the way that they're able to play, I think that they've taken to the strategy and to the philosophy of Ange Postecoglou's better than practically anybody else in the team. You see the exact way that they were able to adapt to what he wanted to do very, very quick, and knowing their roles, contributing not only to the defense but to the creativity. They're absolutely outstanding. You can scarcely fault them. Yes, that Udogie's a little bit rough around the edges because of his age, and he's made some of those mistakes that have contributed to getting yellow cards and getting sent off and that. But that's that's just age, and he will mature. He'll be able to dust that off. Porro's defensive capabilities have grown and grown and grown over the last number of weeks, and so I don't think that you could. That there is no argument to be made that there's another team that has two outstanding, practically elite fullbacks. I just don't think that the case can be made for any other team in the league.
I think that the team that do come close are Liverpool. Obviously, Robertson has been injured for the majority of the season, but he is back. Yeah. He's back I think his prospected return date is 1st of January, so we're not too far away from Robertson returning, and he played I think the first 8 games or maybe a bit less of the season. So I think everyone fit. When you're looking at every team, everyone fit. I do think Trent and Robertson are probably the best fullback pairings in the Premier League, but judging on this season's performances and what they've given us to I think you're right. I think we do have the best on-form fullback pairing of the league. I mean, You're looking at Arsenal, Ben White and Zinchenko. I don't think either of them get in our team at fullback. You're looking at Man City. They've just completely abandoned fullbacks with what they're doing with Kyle Walker and Guardiola. And actually, I know Kyle Walker's probably one of, if not the best right back in Premier League history, but still, for what we need out of a right back, Pedro Porro is much better for what we need than Kyle Walker is, in my opinion. So you're looking at all the top teams in the league, and I think we do have the best kind of on-form fullbacks, if not quality-wise as well. When you take
longevity as well, because those Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie are so young, whereas Trent is quite young, but Robertson's getting on. Robertson's 29, and he's definitely he's losing a step. He's not quite the player that he was. I don't think he's at his best. Yes. You can still make the argument that Robertson and Trent are way up there in terms of their ability as fullbacks and their pairing, but they are on the downturn. Robinson is not. I think Trent is at the height of his powers, but Robertson isn't, and he's only going to slow down. If you ask me. So even in terms of longevity, we've got more going on for us in terms of where are we going to be in the next 4 years. They will have to replace Robertson. We won't have to replace anybody.
Yeah, but here and now, right now, quality-wise, I do think Trent and Robertson are probably the best fullback pairing in the Premier League. But David, where's your head at with it? Have we got the best fullbacks in the league?
We have the best fullbacks in the league. First of all, they need to remake Bend It Like Beckham and call it Bend It Like Porro. Absolutely unbelievable in terms of the quality that guy possesses in his right boot. When you actually look at the stats in terms of contributions going forward between Trent and Pedro Porro, Pedro Porro's only 1 or 2 off since January of, off the numbers that Trent Alexander-Arnold is producing. But because his name isn't Trent Alexander-Arnold, people don't sort of spout or wax lyricals about him. And plus, because he wears a Tottenham jersey. When you ask me, is Pedro Porro better defensively? Well, Trent hasn't adapted defensively at right back. Pedro Porro has. And look, you speak about a player that was written off, by the fan base. He was written off come the end of last season. He ain't good enough, too small, gets bullied, this, that, and the other. But what the guy has, what no one else really looked into, is when the times got tough, he knuckled down and worked even harder. Whereas I'd accuse other players at this football club haven't done that in years gone by. You've seen stuff going up on his Instagram reels of him throwing medicine balls around the place and stuff like that. Constantly working, constantly looking to improve, and stuff like that. So for me, I'd actually argue, is he as good or better than Trent Alexander-Arnold, considering he can defend and is putting up the same numbers as him going forward. When you go over to the left-hand side, no one skinned Udogie this season. Absolutely nobody. The guy can defend. He doesn't need help either. When Davies played out there a couple of times, Van de Ven had to go out there and help him out. Udogie doesn't need that. Doesn't need any help whatsoever. Just give me that ball and try and take it off me, because all you're going to see is my name and number on the back. So get used to it. And he just absolutely darts through the middle of that field and he helps going forward. And I was absolutely buzzing for the big dog to get his goal at the weekend. And the contract that I think the gem and the caliber player we've got on our hands. Make no mistake about it, that contract ain't to give Destiny Udogie more money. We don't want to do that at this football club. It's to protect the value of him so that when clubs do come calling, all of a sudden he's gone from 50 million up to 100 million. That's why we've given him that new contract to sort of tie him down here and stuff like that. But he's been absolutely superb. He does it all, Udogie. Defending, going forward. Robertson's coming to the end of his career, starting to slow down a bit. Udogie's only getting going. So I'd actually argue we have the best fullbacks in the league.
I would say Udogie has struggled in a couple of games this season, but the good thing about Udogie is he learns in game very quickly and kind of improves his performance massively throughout the game. I mean, that Arsenal game springs to mind massively. I think he came under so much pressure in the opening 20, 30 minutes of that game, and he did get skinned a few times, not going to lie. But he ended that game one of the best players on the football pitch. And so that just shows what a good player he is and how quickly he can adapt and how quickly he can learn throughout the game. And I also would say, since that sending off at Chelsea, he hasn't been kind of the same Udogie as we have seen in the first 10 games of the season. But I do think, and obviously that back pass against West Ham was absolutely terrible. But the game on the weekend as well was back to the old Udogie that we did see the first 10 games as it was for Bissouma. So I definitely take your point on Udogie, and he definitely is one of the most informed left backs in the Premier League this season. But what are you thinking, Sim, as a massive Trent fan?
Yeah, look, what I want to say about our fullbacks is I absolutely love how they've both got two different skill sets, but they kind of really complement each other. Like you got Porro, who's Trent-like in terms of unbelievable passing range, unbelievable technique. He's got a brilliant shot on him. He's got, I think he's probably the best player when it comes to when we're trying to progress the play from build-up. You give the ball to Porro, he always seems to find a solution when passing out the back, and a really good solution at that. And when you get into the final third, he's actually probably one of our most creative players. I think the stats bear it out in terms of how he's able to create chances. His delivery from deep positions is absolutely amazing. And I think he's one of the best passers on the team, to be honest. That's how good Porro is. And, David said he doesn't think anyone's skinned Udogie. I think you could probably say the same with Porro. I can't remember too many people who've skinned Porro either this season. I think defensively, he still gets tarnished with this defensive liability brush, which I think is very outdated. I think he's been really good defensively the whole season. He came in second game against Man United. I don't remember one game where I point to Porro.
Porro's been perfect all season.
I can't think of one game. I can't think of one game where Porro's been a defensive liability. And then you go over to Udogie, and he's just like a bit of a bulldozer, basically. He doesn't. He's not got the passing range of a Porro, but he'll basically progress the ball up the pitch with his pure physicality. He'll just take you on and just completely bully you and run through you, basically. That's what Udogie will do. And it's every bit as effective as Porro, but just in a completely different way. And I think just both these fullbacks have unbelievable skill sets and they're the kind of the opposite of each other, but they both really complement each other really well. And I think they're both performing at such a high level, especially for their age. Really good consistency, and I think this season for sure they've both been the best this season. I think Robertson, to be honest, has been slowing down for the past couple of years. I don't think he's at the same level he was maybe 3 years ago.
Still a top left back though.
He's still a top left back. I don't think he's been playing to the level Udogie's been playing this season, to be honest, in my opinion.
The thing is with Robertson, I think he did have a poor season last year, but I actually think he started the season this year probably better than he has been for the past couple of years.
I think he's been good this season. Don't get me wrong. I think last season he was really poor, and he's maybe better than that. But I still think maybe 3 or 4 years ago he was much better. And I don't know what it is. Maybe he had more energy, but I just feel like this season he just hasn't been on that same level. Trent, I mean, look, people say he's not playing in the same, he's playing in an inverted role, but you can say the same with Porro. Porro's playing very central as well, and he's also playing in that inverted role, and he also plays quite central. So if you want to throw that at Trent, I guess you could throw it at Porro as well. I do think Porro's been better defensively than Trent for sure, but Trent, I think on the ball. You know what? I think Porro is definitely catching up with him with some of his recent performances. I feel like Porro this season, for a lot of the season, has been tightening up defensively. That maybe he hasn't been showing what I know he's got on the ball. But I think recently, I think that's definitely been changing. I think he's been maybe as creative as we know he can be on the ball in recent weeks. And I think when he's playing like he did on Sunday, he every bit as good as Trent, to be honest. And then you add into that defensively, he's probably better than Trent. Maybe you can say he's been better on form. I just think, but I think Trent, the difference between Porro and Trent is Trent's been a proper match winner for Liverpool, and he's come up with clutch moments. He's really, when Liverpool struggled, like they've actually looked to Trent to change the game. I don't think Porro's been on that level just yet, so I would say Trent's still a bit ahead of him, but Porro's definitely catching up with him. And as David said, in terms of goal contributions, Porro's right up there with him, absolutely. And I think in terms of the qualities and delivery, I think Trent's maybe a bit ahead of him, but Porro's not far off, and I think that's testament to how good Porro has been this season. So I just think as a pair on form, they probably have been the best to the season. I don't think anyone can really argue with that. I think they're both incredible.
Based on everything you've just said regarding Porro's contributions to the team versus Trent, you wouldn't really be able to make an argument that like Trent it has instances where you go, holy, and then so like he's able to do specific things where you go, that is absolutely phenomenal. There's very few players in the world that could pull off what he just did. But overall, the contributions to the matches, yes, he's won them games in moments for sure. But then you look like the individual games. But across the board, when you look at goal contributions, they're not off each other. And again, as much as I do think Robertson is fantastic, I think Udogie's better. I think Udogie's better, and Robertson's on the downturn. So when you compare, like Trent, yes, obviously, you take Trent over Porro every day of the week, but at the same, only because of that X factor where he. See me?
I can still see you and hear you.
We're back live, guys. We're back live, guys. Sorry about that. Adam, carry on with what you were saying. You're onto something good there.
No, I just to summarize, because I've gone on a bit of a rant, but the fact that you have Trent Alexander-Arnold and Porro is so fairly, equally matched in respect to goal contributions, plus the fact that Porro is a better defender. Porro is definitely a better defender than Trent Alexander-Arnold. So goal contribution-wise, fairly similar, but Porro is a much, much better defender. And then Udogie is going from strength to strength, outperforming Robertson at the moment, and also he's going to continue to do so. Robertson's on the downturn, Udogie's on the upturn, which means that overall, pound for pound, as a duo, I think you've got to give it to Tottenham, and that's only going to, the chasm is only going to get wider unless they replace Robertson with somebody fairly, outstanding in the coming windows. The chasm is going to get wider and wider in terms of our fullbacks being better than theirs. But if I had, you holding my feet to the fire and saying which is the best right now, I would, even if the category is just at this exact moment in time, you've still got to give it to us. because based on recent performances, based on the fact that, again, you cannot be unfair to Robertson when he's not been playing, but he's not been playing. So, I think that at this moment in time, we do have the best fullbacks, and going forward, the chasm's going to get wider and wider. We are going to blow them out of sight.
Yeah, and one thing as well, teams do seem to target Liverpool down that side where Trent is in terms of when they go forward, and I don't think teams do the same for Porro.
Yeah,
100%.
He's very strong defensively, way better than people give him credit for, and so you're absolutely bang on.
And you look at some of the assists Porro's got this season. The Burnley one springs to mind, the one at the weekend against Newcastle springs to mind. I mean, apart from Trent, I can't see any right back in the Premier League trying to pull off those kind of passes. And you're looking at Sim said to me the other day that Pedro Porro is the most underrated player in the Premier League, or close to. I think, did you say the most or one of the most?
Yeah, probably one of the most in terms of how casual fans look at him compared to maybe how Spurs fans see him. And I don't think I think opposition fans still see him as that player who made his debut against Leicester and got torn to shreds. I don't think people realise how good he is. And
And I was having an argument with an Arsenal fan last night, a very deluded Arsenal fan at that. I got to give him that. But he was saying to me that there's no chance he would take Pedro Porro over Ben White at right back. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Have you not seen Pedro Porro play even one game this season? Ben White ain't even fit to lick his boots or clean his boots. You know what I mean? How can anyone say that Pedro Porro is not a better right back than Ben White?
I mean, first of all, Pedro Porro has a better tan than Ben White, so let's get that straight. Second of all, he's more photogenic than Ben White, so let's get that straight. Look, Arsenal fans, they're just deluded, just absolutely deluded. Ben White's not even a fullback; he's a centre-back, shoehorned out the fullback. Mm-hmm. Can Ben White score goals? Strike a ball the way Porro does? No. Can he pass a ball like Porro does? No. Can he cross a ball like Porro does? No. Can he defend like Porro does? No. Does he have the same sort of attitude and mentality as Porro? Nowhere near it, as he wouldn't have walked out from England in an international competition. So for all them reasons, your Arsenal mate's absolutely deluded.
Agreed. And I told him that last night. Don't you worry about that, Dave. But look, I think that does bring an end to the panel. So I'd like to thank Adam. Go on, Adam. You want to say something?
Just because I had it on my mind, and I think it's worth saying, just for the fact that we brought it up, in terms of players that are actually underrated. Porro, yes, 100%, I agree he's up there. But in terms of most underrated player, Pape Matar. I think that dude is the most underrated player in the Premier League by a country mile. I don't think anyone realizes. I don't even think Spurs fans realize just how essential that guy is to our team performing at the level that we perform at our best. He is literally the pivot. He is pivotal, right? He is literally the pivot that connects every single aspect of our team together to make it run smoothly. He is the engine going forward. He never stops running. Him and Kulusevski never, ever, ever give up the ghost. It's like the gas tank it just seems like it's always full. He will get forward when he needs to. He gets back when he needs to. But again, it's one of those kind of unquantifiables. So I can't exactly tell you the details of the difference that he makes. But it's it obviously has to do with his dynamism. It's very much to do with his dynamism. He galvanizes the squad when he's in there. He is where he needs to be on the pitch at every single moment. Never stops running. Never stops giving it 100%. And I really do. Because you cannot qualify or quantify exactly what it is that he's doing for the team, but it's there. As Spurs fans, we know it's there, but I don't think that we appreciate just how essential he is for the squad to be fully harmonious. And then to that degree, if Spurs fans can't even see it, there is no way the rest of the neutrals and the other fans out there, they don't get just how much this guy is. Talk about the inflation of what players are valued at these days. Pape Matar is £100 million player. He is £100 million player in hiding. And I don't think that I'm mistaken in saying that.
Adam, I would say that this weekend was evidence of that massively. massively. Like, we've missed him so much, and nobody even kind of said, oh, we're missing Pape Matar. But when we saw him on that team at Newcastle and what he gave us, the balance in midfield, the energy levels in midfield, I think he lets Bissouma as well do what he needs to do in midfield and kind of unlocks Bissouma as well. But that brings the question, when Maddison, when Bentancur, when these players are back, what's our starting three midfield?
It's an amazing headache to have. Let's be fair. It's an absolutely amazing headache to have. I think that given when you see Bissouma and Sarr working together, how elite we look, like we absolutely destroy teams when the two of them are playing together. And you see what happens to Bissouma when Sarr gets removed. So I think that the two of them need to be in there, and then you can't. But if Matters is back and he's fully fit, you can't leave him out of the team. But then Kulusevski's not in the 10 anymore. It is a nightmare of a problem, but an excellent problem. Do you push Kulusevski back out onto the right again? Like, I don't know. It's mayhem, but in the greatest way possible. Absolutely.
All right. Dave, you want to finish off saying anything? I can see you're itching to say something.
No, look, for me, I think the answer's simple. I think Bentancur, Sarr, and Maddison in that midfield. If you're talking about a balanced midfield, look, Bissouma.
No Bissouma.
Look, he started off the season on fire, but look, he's the sort of tempo setter of the game, and I know he picks up a lot of ball off the back line and progresses it forward and stuff like that. But that 30 minutes I've seen of Bentancur, he's been way more proactive in that role than what I did see from Bissouma. And I think Bissouma's lost an element to his game. You know, at the start of the season, he was picking up the ball, driving at players, you know, making runs into the box, stuff like that. I feel like when I've watched him the last while, he just slows the game down completely, walking over, 5-yard pass, take it back, give it to the next guy. I mean, I'm not being funny, but we sold Harry Winks for that exact reason. I'm not saying he's as bad as Harry Winks, but he obviously needs to add a bit more to his game. In Liverpool, against Liverpool, you know, Postecoglou took him off because he was slowing it down, even though they were down to 9 men. Brought on Højbjerg, one quick pass into the forward line. We end up putting the ball in the box. We end up going and scoring a goal. So for me, you know, Bissouma, it's up to Bissouma to do a lot more to prove that he's better than a Bentancur and people like that to hold on to his position. Because right now, the last few weeks haven't been good enough. And he was starting to slow it down against Newcastle. Only Son got on the ball and went and ripped them apart. So for me, I think there's a lot more to do. I think Bentancur all around. I think he offers more of a goal threat, Bentancur. He's got a better passing range in terms of longer balls and stuff like that. So that's the argument I would make. Nothing against Bissouma. I just want
Dave, I am not having that Bissouma Harry Winks comparison. I am not having that whatsoever. The only person that can make that comparison is this guy over here. That's the only person that can make that comparison.
It's not so much a comparison, but it's the danger. He's in danger of falling into that role if he doesn't show a bit more to his game. Because I'm not being funny. I'm about 8 stone overweight. I could have done what he's done the past few weeks. Get on the ball, run it 5 yards.
He was brilliant against Newcastle.
To a certain degree. He was okay. I don't think he was excellent.
He was much better than he has been in those weeks that you're talking about, and I think that Sarr does give him that extra protection that he did need, that he has needed in the maybe previous games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite so sure on that.
Well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree unless Sim wants to chime in quickly before we end the stream.
Have you seen Winks for Leicester this season? He is cooking. He is cooking. I'm just saying. Don't rule out.
All right, guys. Well, Adam, David, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Thank you, everyone in the chat as well, for joining us. I think we did have one super chat quickly before we go, and it's from our very own Sean Butler. And he says, stop the cap, Rishi score and Rishi out, Jimenez in. And I think throughout that whole Richarlison chat, Sean was just absolutely going mad in the chat, telling us to stop talking and that we're deluded and we didn't know what we're talking about with Richarlison. But I just want Richarlison to come good so we could just throw it in his face, to be honest.
Absolutely. Can't wait for the day.
But once again, thank you so much for coming on. Adam, you're up to a lot of exciting stuff at the moment. So do you want to tell the people where they can find you and what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, nice one, mate. I appreciate it. I won't take the floor for too long because obviously it's not Tottenham related, so I don't, I don't want to bore everybody that isn't interested. But I am a film director. I have a film out on Amazon Prime. It's also on Apple TV. It's also on YouTube Movies. It's on Google Play. So anybody who wants to check out a movie called Follow the Dead, that would be my film. I wrote it, directed it, and produced it. I'm also making the sequel to that at the moment. I've also got a short film out. You can learn all about the things that I'm doing currently, especially other podcasts that I'm on with Hollywood A-listers and things like that.
All right.
So you can check all that out over at my social media channels. At Wild Stag Media is where you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, absolutely everything. So you can learn all about it over there. It'll save the Tottenham talk for here. But thanks very much again for having me on, lads, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to promote myself as well. So it's been great chatting to you. It's been fantastic getting back in, and hopefully it won't be too long for the next one.
Absolutely. It's been great having you on as well. Dave, I'm sure the majority of people know where you are, but for those who don't, let them know what is coming up on the Irish Hotspur very soon.
Yeah, the problem with that, Ben, is the majority of people haven't gone across and subscribed. So what you doing with your time? Get over there and hit the subscribe button. But yeah, you can find me over at the Irish Hotspur. That's where you'll find this big dog.
Lovely. So everyone, if you haven't already, go over to the Irish Hotspur and hit that subscribe button. Great Spurs content coming out daily for you there as well. But look, that brings an end to the panel show today. We'll see you all very soon. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.